As the riper should by time decrease, his tender air might bear his memory. But thou contracted to thine own bright eyes, feedst thy light's flame with self-substantial fuel, making a famine where abundance.
Listless praise. How much more praise deserve thy beauty's use? If thou couldst answer, this fair child of mine shall sum my count and make my old excuse, proving his beauty by succession.
Or, who is he so fond will be the tomb of his self-love to stop posterity? Thou art thy mother's glass, and she in thee calls back the lovely April of her prime.
Use the bounteous largess given thee to give. Profitless usurer, why dost thou use so great a sum of sum, yet canst not live? For having
hideous winter, and confounds him there. Sap checked with frost and lusty leaves, quite gone. Beauty oversnowed, and bareness.
Thyself were happier than thou art, if 10 of thine 10 times refigured thee. Then what could death do if thou shouldst depart, leaving thee living in posterity? Be not self-willed, for thou art much
heavenly hill, resembling strong youth in his middle age, yet mortal looks adore his beauty still, attending on his golden pilgrimage. But when from highmost pitch with weary car, like feeble age he readeth
thine annoy. If the true concord of well-tuned sounds by unions married do offend thine ear, they do but sweetly chide thee, who confounds in singleness the parts that thou shouldst spare. Marks how one string
Still weep, that thou no form of thee has left behind. When every private window thou may keep, where children's eyes, a husband's.
For thou art so possessed with murderous hate, that 'gainst thyself thou stickst not to conspire, seeking that beauteous roof to ruinate, which to repair should be thy chief desire.
Herein lives wisdom, beauty, and increase. Without this, folly, age, and cold decay. If all were minded so, the time should cease, and 80 years would make the world away.
The trees I see, barren of leaves, which erst from heat did canopy the herd, in summer's green all girded up in sheaves, borne on the bier, with white and bristly beard. And of thy beauty do I question make, that thou...
No determination, then you were yourself again after yourself's decease. When your sweet issue, your sweet form should bear, who lets so fair a house fall?
Or say with princes, if it shall go well, by oft predict that I in heaven find. But from thine eyes my knowledge I derive, and constant stars in them I read.
Stars in secret influence comment. When I perceive that men as plants increase, cheered and checked even by the selfsame sky, vaunt
Which would bear your living flowers, much liker than your painted counterfeit, so should the lines of life that life repair, which this time's pencil or my pupil pen, neither in inward worth nor outward.
The age to come would say this poet lies. Such heavenly touches ne'er touched earthly faces. So should my papers yellowed with their age be scorned like old men of less truth than tongue?
To a summer's day, thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too.
By chance, all nature's changing course and trimmed, but thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest. Nor shall death brag thou wanderest,
Oh, carve not with the hours my love's fair brow, nor draw no lines there with thine antique pen. Him in thy coarse and tainted do allow, for beauty's
passion. A woman's gentle heart, but not acquainted with shifting change, as is false women's fashion. An eye more bright than theirs, less false in rolling, gilding the object.
stirred by a painting beauty to his verse, who heaven itself for ornament doth use, and every fair with his fair doth rehearse, making a couplement.
Cover thee is but thy seemingly raiment of my heart, which in thy breast doth live as thine in me. How can I then be elder than thou art?
Forget to say the perfect ceremony of love's rite, and in mine own love's strength seem to decay, or charged with burden of mine own love's might. What? Let my books
or some fierce thing requite with too much rage, whose strength abundance weakens his own heart. So I, fear of trust, forget to say the perfect ceremony of love's rite.
Bosom's shop is hanging still, that hath his windows glazed with thine eyes. Now see what good turns eyes for eyes have done. Mine eyes have drawn thy shape, and thine for me are windows to my breast.
But as the marigold at the sun's eye, and in themselves their pride lies buried. For at a frown they in their glory die, the painful warrior so poor as mine may make seem bare in wanting words to show it. But that I hope some good conceit of thine in thy soul's thought or naked will bestow it.
Thoughts from far where I abide, intend a zealous pilgrimage to thee, and keep my drooping eyelids open wide, looking on darkness which the blind do see.
Yea, oppressed, and each, though enemies to either's reign, do in consent shake hands to torture me, the one by toil, the other to complain how
Wishing me like to one more rich in hope, featured like him with friends possessed, desiring this man's art and that man's scope, with what I most enjoy contented least.
My dear time's waste. Then can I drown an eye unused to flow, for precious friends hid in death's dateless night, and weep afresh love's long since cancelled woe, and moan and all love's loving parts, and all those friends which I thought buried. How many a holy and obsequious tear hath dear religious love stolen from mine eye, as interest of the dead.
Reserve them for my love, not for the rhyme. Exceeded by the height of happier men. O then vouchsafe me, but this loving thought.
Celestial face, and from the forlorn world his visage hide, stealing unseen to west with this disgrace. Even so, my sun one early morn did shine with all triumphant splendour on my brow, but out.
'Tis not enough that through the cloud thou break, to dry the rain on my storm-beaten face, for no man well of such a salve can speak, that heals
rising thy trespass with compare, myself corrupting, salving thy amiss, excusing thy sins more than thy sins are, for to thy sensual fault I bring in sense, thy adverse
which though it alter not love's sole effect, yet doth it steal sweet hours from love's delight. I may not evermore acknowledge thee, lest my bewailed guilt
Spite, take all my comfort of thy worth and truth. For whether beauty, birth, or wealth, or wit, or any of these, or all, or more, entitled in their parts do crowned sit, I
Worthy
may
perusal, stand against thy sight. For who's so dumb that cannot write to see thee, when thou thyself dost give invention light? Be thou the 10th muse.
When I praise thee. Even for this, let us divided live, and our dear love lose name of single one, and with this separation I may give that due to thee thou deservest alone.
All mine was thine before thou hadst this more than if for my love thou my love receivest. I cannot blame thee for all my love thou usest, but yet be blamed if thou...
Befits, for still temptation follows where thou art. Gentle thou art, and therefore to be won. Beauteous thou art, therefore to be assailed. And when a woman...
Prove her. If I lose thee, my loss is my love's gain, and losing her, my friend, have found that loss.
Bright in dark directed, then thou, whose shadows doth make bright, how would thy shadows fall?
Thy shade shines so. How would, I say, mine eyes be blessed made, by looking on thee in the living day, when in dead night thy fear in perfect shade.
No better then, although my foot did stand upon the farthest earth removed from thee. For nimble thought can jump both sea and land as soon as think the place where he would be. But thought kills me that
Being made of four with two alone, sinks down to death oppressed with melancholy, until life's composition be recurred by those swift messengers returned from thee.
A closet never pierced with crystal eyes, but the defendant doth that plea deny, and says in him thy fair appearance lies. To cite this title is impaneled, a quest of thoughts.
Then still with me, for thou not farther than my thoughts canst move, and I am still with them, and they with thee. Or, if they sleep, thy picture in my sight awakes my heart to heart, and I, most worthy comfort, now my greatest grief, thou best of dearest and mine only care, art left the prey of every vulgar thief. Thee have I not locked up, ensconce me here, within the knowledge of my own desert, and this, my hand, against myself uprear, to guard the lawful reasons on thy part. To leave
doth teach that ease and that repose to say, thus far the miles are measured from thy friend. The beast that bears me, tired with my woe, plods dully on to bear
From where thou art, why should I haste me thence till I return? Of posting is no need. Oh, what excuse will my poor beast then find, when swift extremity can seem but slow? Then
Pleasure, the which he would not every hour survey, for blunting the fine point of seldom pleasure. Therefore a feast, so solemn and so great,
Shadow lend. Describe Adonis, and the counterfeit is poorly imitated after you. On Helen's cheek all art of beauty set, and you in Grecian tires are painted new. Speak of the spring.
The rose looks fair, but fairer we it deem, for that sweet odour which doth in it live. The canker blooms are full as deep a dye as the perfumed tincture of the roses.
All the gilded monuments of princes shall outlive this powerful rhyme. but you shall shine more bright in these contents than unswept stone besmeared with sluttish time. When wasteful war...
Renew thy force, be it not said, thy edge should be blunter, be than appetite, which but today by feeding is allayed, tomorrow sharpened in his former might. So, love, be thou...
Watch the clock for you, nor think the bitterness of absence sour when you have bid your servant once adieu. Nor dare I question with my jealous thought where you may be, or your affairs suppose.
Suffer, being at your beck, the imprisoned absence of your liberty, and patience ta'en to sufferance bide each check, without accusing you of injury. Beware you... Oh, that record could, with a backward look, even of 500 courses of the sun, show me your image in some antique book, since mind at first in character...
That which goes before. In sequent toil all forwards do contend. Nativity, once in the main of light, crawls to maturity, where...
Is it thy spirit thou sends from thee so far from home into my deeds to pry, to find out shames and idle hours in me, the scope and tenure of thy jealousy?
No face so gracious is as mine, no shape so true, no truth of such account, and for myself mine own worth do define, as all other in all worth.
Since everyone hath every one shade, and you but one can every shadow lend. Describe Adonis, and the counterfeit is poorly imitated after you. On Helen's cheek,
age, when sometime lofty towers I see down raised, and brass eternal slave to mortal rage. When I have seen the hungry ocean gain advantage on the kingdom of the shore.
Oh, how shall summer's honey breath hold out against the wrathful siege of battering days, when rocks impregnable are not so stout, nor gates of steel so strong, but time decays?
And art made tongue-tied by authority, and folly doctor-like controlling skill, and simple truth miscalled simplicity, and captive good attending captain ill.
Roses of shadow see things roses true, why should he leave? Now nature, bound what is, beggared of blood to blush through lively veins, for she had no exchequer.
Flowers do now. Before these bastards signs of fair were born, or durst inhabit on a living brow. Before the golden tresses of the dead, the rite of sepulchres was shorn away.
Thy outward thus with outward praises crowned, but those same tongues that give thee so thine own in other accents do this praise confound. Thy seeing farther than
doth but approve, thy worth the greater, being rude of time, for canker vice the sweetest buds doth love, and thou presentest a pure unstained prime. Thou hast passed.
If you read this line, remember not the hand that writ it, for I love you so, that I in your sweet thoughts will be forgot, if thinking on me then should make you woe.
hang more praise upon deceased eye than niggard truth would willingly impart. Oh, lest your true love may seem false in this.
Twilight of such day was after sunset faded from the west, which by and by black night doth take away. Death's sentence.
You, the very part was consecrate to thee. The earth can have but earth, which is his due. My spirit is thine. the better part of me. So then thou hast but the lost,
doubting the filching age will steal his treasure, now counting best to be with you alone. Then
almost tell my name, showing their birth and where they did proceed. Oh no, sweet love, I always write of you.
And of this book, this learning mayest thou taste, the wrinkles which thy glass will truly show, of mild graves will give thee memory. Thou by thy dial's shady stealth mayest know time's thievish progress to eternity.
I compile, whose influence is thine and born of thee. In others' works thou dost but mend the style, and arts with thy sweet graces graced be. But thou art all my
He
art.
lent thee virtue, and he stole that word from thy behaviour. Beauty doth he give, and found it in thy cheek. He can afford no praise.
My saucy bark, inferior to his, on your broad main doth wilfully appear. Your shallowest help will hold me up afloat.
Name from hence immortal life shall have, though I, once gone, to all the world must die. The earth can yield me but a common grave, when you entombed in men's eyes shall lie.
Thou art as fair in knowledge as in hue, finding thy worth a limit past my praise, and therefore art enforced to seek anew some fresher stamp of the time-battering days.
That you yourself, being excellent, well might show how far a modern quill doth come too short. Speaking of worth, what worth in you doth grow? This silence for my sin you did impute, which shall be
Subject lends not some small glory, but he that writes of you, if he can tell that you are you, so dignifies his story. In polished form of well-refined pen, hearing you praise, I say, 'tis so, 'tis true, and to the most of praise add something more. But that
Is of his great verse, bound for the prize of all too precious you, that did my ripe thoughts in my brain inhearse, making their tomb the womb wherein they grew. Was it his spirit?
Releasing. My bonds in thee are all determinate. For how do I hold thee but by thy granting? And for that riches where is my deserving? The cause of this fair gift in me
art forsworn, with my own weakness being best acquainted. Upon thy part I can set down a story of faults concealed wherein I am attained, that thou in
I will acquaintance strangle and look strange, be absent from thy walks and in my tongue. Thy sweet beloved name no more shall dwell, lest I too much profane.
the loss. Do not, when my heart have scoped this sorrow, come in the rearward of a conquered woe.
Thy love is better than high birth to me, richer than wealth, prouder than garments cost, of more delight than hawks or horses be, and having thee of all men's.
For it depends upon that love of thine. Then need I not to fear the worst of wrongs, when in the least of them my life hath end. I see a better state to me did decree, that in thy face sweet love should ever dwell. Whatever thy thoughts or thy heart's workings be, thy looks
though to itself it only live and die. But if that flower with base infection meet, the basest weed outbraves his dignity. For sweetest things
tells the story of thy days, making lascivious comments on thy sport. Cannot dispraise, but in kind of praise, naming thy name, blesses an ill report.
So are those errors that in thee are seen, to truths translated, and for true things deemed. How many lambs might the stern wolf betray?
Bearing the wanton burden of the prime, like widowed wombs after their lord's decease. Yet this abundant issue seemed to me but hope of orphans, an unfathered fruit.
Smell of different flowers in odour and in hue could make me any summer's story tell, or from their proud lap pluck them where they grew. Nor did I.
The roses fearfully on thorns did stand, one blushing shame, another white despair.
Return, forgetful muse, and straight redeem, in gentle numbers, time so idly spent. Sing to the ear that doth valleys esteem, and gives thy Pembroke.
Of truth and beauty died. Of truth and beauty, on my love depends.
Our love was new, and then but in the spring, when I was wont to greet it with my lays, as Philomel in summer's front doth sing, and stops his pipe in growth of ripe Adelle.
If I no more can write, look in your glass, and there appears a face that overgoes my blunt intervention quite, dull in my lines, and doing me disgrace.
Autumn turned. In process of the seasons have I seen 3 April perfumes in 3 hot Junes burned, since first I saw you fresh, which yet are green.
My verse too constantly confined, one thing expressing leaves out difference. Fair, kind, and true is all my argument. Fair, kind, and true, varying to other words. And in
of foot, of lip, of eye, of brow, I see their antique pen would have expressed in such a beauty as you master now. So all their praises are but prophecies.
Others mock their own presage, in certainties now crown themselves assured, and peace proclaims olives of endless age. Now, with the drops of this most
so that eternal love in love's fresh case weighs not the dust and injury of age, nor gives to necessary wrinkles place, but makes antiquity for aye his page, finding the first conceit of love there.
Travels I return again, just to the time, not with the time exchanged, so that myself bring water for my stain. Never believe, though in my nature reigned all frailties that besiege all.
And worse essays proved thee my best of love. Now all is done, of what shall have no end. Mine appetite.
Thence comes end. My name receives a brand, and almost that my nature is stumped to what it worked in, like the dire hand. Pity me then, and wish I were renewed.
All the world, and I must strive to know my shames and praises from your tongue. None else to me, nor I to none alive, that my steeled sense or changes
Hath mind no part, nor his own vision holds what it doth catch. For if it see the rudest or gentlest sight, the most sweet favour or deformedst creature, the mountain or the sea, the day or night,
it this alchemy, to make of monsters and things indigest such cherubims as your sweet self resemble, creating every bird a perfect best, as fast as objects to his beams.
Afterwards burn clearer. But, reckoning time, whose millioned accidents creep in twixt vows, and change decrees of kings, tan sacred beauty, blunt the sharpest intents, divert
and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. Love's not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks within his bending sickle's compass
is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. Love's not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks within his bending sickle's compass come. Love
to all the winds which should transport me farthest from your sight. Book both my wilfulness and errors down, and unjust proofs surmise, accumulate. Bring me within the level of your frown, but shoot not at me in your vacant hate.
When we purge, even so, being full of your ne'er-cloying sweetness, to bitter sauces did I frame my feeding, and sick of
applying fears to hopes, and hopes to fears, still losing when I saw myself to win. What wretched errors hath my heart committed, whilst it hath thought itself so blessed never? How have mine eyes out of their spheres been fitted in the
feel, needs must I under my transgression bow, unless my nerves were brass or hammered steel. For if you were by my unkindness shaken, as I by yours.
When not to be receives reproach of being, and the just pleasure lost, which is so deemed not by our feelings, but by others' seeing.
For why should others' false adulterate eyes give salutation to my sportive
subsist, till each raised oblivion yield his part? Of thee thy record never can be missed, that poor retention could not so much hold, nor need I tallies thy dear love to score.
Admire what thou dost foist upon us that is old, and rather make it born to our desire than think that we before have heard it told. Thy registers and thee I both defy, not wondering at the present nor the past, for thy records are
all flowers, with flowers gathered. No, it was builded far from accident. It suffers not in smiling pomp, nor falls under the blow of thralled discontent, whereto
by paying too much rent. For compound sweet, foregoing simple savour, pitiful thrivers in their gazing spent. No, let me be obsequious.
Hour, who hast by waiting grown, and therein show'st thy lover's withering, as thy sweet self growest. If nature, sovereign mistress over rack,
a bastard shame. For since each hand hath put on nature's power, faring the foul with art's false barred face, sweet beauty hath no name, no holy bower, but is profaned, if not lives in disgrace. Therefore
was my poor lips, which should that harvest reap at the wood's boldness by thee blushing stand, to be so tickled they would change their state and situation with those dancing chips, over whom thy fingers walk with
dream, rude, cruel, not to trust, enjoyed no sooner but despised straight, past reason hunted and no sooner had, past reason hated as a swallowed bait.
If snow be white, why then her breasts are done. If hairs be wires,
black wires grow on her head. I have seen roses, damask, red and white, but no such rose.
Thy face have not the power to make love groan. To say they err, I dare not be so bold, although I swear it to myself alone. And, to be sure, that is not false, I swear 1,000.
Better becomes the grey cheeks of the east, nor that full stars that ushers in the even doth have that glory to the sober west.
My next self thou harder hast engrossed. Of him, myself, and thee I am forsaken. A torment thrice threefold, thus to be crossed.
Comfort still, but thou wilt not, nor he will not be free, for thou art covetous and he is kind. He learned but surety like to write for me, under that bond that
I that vex thee still, to thy sweet will making thy addition thus. Wilt thou
with wills, and my will one, in things of great receipt with ease we prove among a number, one is reckoned none. Then in the number let me pass untold.
Bride, why of eyes falsehood hast thou forged hopes, whereto the judgment of my heart is tied?
Why should my heart think that a several plot, which my heart knows, the wide world.
On both sides thus is simply truth suppressed. But wherefore says she is not, she is unjust? And wherefore say not that I am old? O love's best habit.
thou lovest elsewhere, but in my sight, dear heart, forbear to glance thine eye aside. What needst thou wound with cunning when thy might is more than my oppressed defence can buy?
Word, though not to love, yet love to tell me so, as testy sick men when their deaths be near, no news but how from their physicians know. For if I should despair,
In despite of views pleased to doubt, nor are mine ears with thy tongue's tune delighted, nor tender feeling to base touches prone.
Base touches prone, nor taste, nor smell, desire to be invited to any sensual feast with thee alone. But my 5 wits, nor my 5
As mine, robbed others' beds, revenues of their rents. Be it lawful I love thee, as thou lovest those whom thine eyes woo, as mine importune thee.
Root child holds in her chase, cries to catch her whose busy care is bent, to follow that which flies before her face, not prizing her poor infant's discontent.
inside, and would corrupt my saint to be a devil, wooing his purity with her foul pride. And whether that my angel would be turned fiend, suspect I may yet not directly tell. But being both
Chiding that tongue that, ever sweet, was used in giving gentle doom, and taught it thus anew to greet. I hate, she altered with an end, that followed it as gentle day doth follow night.
So short a lease, dost thou upon thy fading mansion spend? Shall worms, inheritors of this excess, eat up thy charge? Is this thy body's end? Then so live thou.
Hath left me, and I desperate now approve. Desire is death, which psychic did accept. Past cure I am, and now reason is past care, and frantic mad with evermore unrest. My thoughts and my discourse.
If that be fair, whereon my full-size dote, what means the world to say it is not so? If it be not, then love doth well denote Love's eye is not so true as all men's. No.
To despise, when all my best doth worship thy defect, commanded by the motion of thine eyes. But love, hate on, for now I know thy mind. Those that can see thou lovest.
Whence hast thou this becoming of things ill? That in this very refuse of thy deeds, there is such strength and warranties of skill, that, in my mind, thy worst all best exceeds.
Will apart to my gross body's treason. My soul doth tell my body that he may triumph in love. Flesh stays no farther reason.
For I have sworn deep oaths of thy deep kindness, oaths of thy love, thy truth, thy constancy, and to enlighten thee gave eyes to blindness, or made them swear against the thing they see.
Which borrowed from this body fire of love, abate this lively heat still to endure, and grew a seething bath, which yet men prove against strange maladies a softening cure.
Votary took up that fire, which many legions of true hearts had warmed, and so the general of hot desire was sleeping by a virgin hand disarmed. This branch he quenched,